Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books. What a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together. What a yummy snack. PBJamz. Yummy books and music. PBJamz. Reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz. What a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz.
Good morning or afternoon or evening, whenever it is that you are joining us for this episode of PBJamz, we are super stoked to have you with us. And also with us, we have Alliah Agostini. I hope that's right. Is that correct, Alliah?
Yes.
Okay.
I use the middle initial too, but yes, you pronounce it perfectly.
Okay, good. Yeah, and she has a brand new book that has just come out, and so we are super excited to be talking with her about her book, and Big Tune, right? Big Tune.
Yes, Big
Yes.
Tune. Yes,
Big Tune, and it is adorable. It is so cute and so super fun. It's got a little rhyme and rhythm and it's so fun. So we're super excited to talk to her about that today. So welcome, Alliah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Connie. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to speak to you.
Yeah, she's had a busy day, so we are glad that she is here with us today. And
yes, fresh from Legoland.
Yeah. The joys of momhood and spring break. I'm looking forward to that. My spring break starts this Thursday, so we're not going to Legoland though. We're gonna stay home.
Don't. You're a teacher. You have Legoland every day.
Legoland every day in the classroom.
every day. Oh dear, I lost my
Yes.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit, Alliah, about the inspiration for this book, Big Tune.
Certainly. So Big Tune is set in the early 90s in Brooklyn, New York, and it's about a little Jamaican American boy. And my husband happens to fit all of those descriptions. So he is the son of Jamaican immigrants. My family is Guyanese and American. This book, like many, was written during the pandemic. So we were searching for inspiration from internally, our brains, and also from the people around us. So I was only around a few people during that time. That was my husband and my two kids. And there's so much that we missed during that time, like many people did. We just missed having, other people around and having fun and just connectivity. And my husband always used to talk about, his memories of like the big parties his family used to have back in Brooklyn when he was a kid in the early 90s. And the funny thing about it was, everybody would dance and, sing and just have a good time as most people do at parties. But he was on the shyer side at that time. And he liked to kind of hang in the back, and he would actually he liked to collect the bottles and the cans because then he could return them for money. At least in New York State and some other states, you can do coin return. And as a little kid, that's like one of the few ways that you can make your own money independently and, spend it on whatever you wanted to. And I just thought that was kind of like a sweet thing, it was like, I knew that he is actually a very good dancer. So the little boy in the book is actually a very good dancer. He's just kind of too shy to show his moves. And in this particular book, he has a parent that is a very big, presence too. And I was like, this would be such a fun story to kind of fictionalize and to make into a book, because I really didn't see too many books that reflected our Caribbean heritage, in picture book form. And as we discussed, I am a mom of two young children. And so much of what I do now is really to kind of fill the gaps that I see. And so I was like, what if I made a story that was kind of inspired by this one truth, but fictionalize it and make this character of Shane that's, kind of like a fictional version that's inspired by my husband, and, what kind of themes can we put in here? And then, of course, I love music.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking today. And it's like, how can I make this more musical? So it really did take inspiration from somebody that's very close to me, but kind of made a fictional version of it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. Shane is, so I have to ask, is your husband's name actually Shane?
So great question. So his name is LeVar, but his family calls him Shane.
Okay.
So that's funny. The only thing is they spell it differently. So they spell Shane more like people might pronounce it Cheyenne if they see it spelled out the way they do sometimes. So
Okay.
it's actually like Cheyenne. Shane in
Oh,
this book is spelled Shane. So I'm like,
right.
this is book Shane. This isn't real Shane. This is book Shane, but they're
Gotcha.
still phonetically, or they still sound the same. Yeah.
Interesting. See, my husband's name is Shane, so I have
Really?
vested interest. Yeah. N-E.
Shane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's
Yeah.
so funny. That's
So
so
yeah,
funny.
I was
Yeah.
just reading it to him downstairs a while ago. He really enjoyed it too. It's
Oh,
really
good.
such a super fun book. And so I have to ask, I want to talk about the writing process, but I also want to talk about rhyming. So when we
Yeah.
are pre-published authors, which is where I am right now for a little while longer, but when we're in that space, like we hear all the time, don't rhyme, don't rhyme, don't rhyme, right? And so but always we also know that there are great books that come out all the time and they rhyme. And so as you're talking about the writing process, can you also address a little bit about the rhyming and why you chose to go that route?
Yeah, sure. So one thing I wanted to know too about Big Tune is it actually kind of sprung out of a manuscript that I was working on before this that was about dance that wasn't working. And then I kind of took this, I took a totally different turn with it and made Big Tune, kind of inspired by LeVar and his experience. But that manuscript too was about dancing and it was in rhyme. And honestly, I've talked about rhyme before in other interviews in my love loathe relationship with it. um,
Yeah.
it just kind of feels like I'm not like a classically trained writer or poet necessarily, but I love music and I love musicality of words, and it just felt like something that I needed to do. I mean, it's funny. I would love to say that this is my particular craft and how I modeled it, etc. But it kind of was just like this is how it came to me. Like basically, I mean, Tani, we were talking about how we're both night owls. This
Yeah.
is what generally happens to me. So I was stuck on this manuscript, and my critique partner asked me, what if one of the kids was shy? And that's what triggered the thought about my husband talking about his stories of when
Right.
he was younger and he was too shy to dance in front of his family. And this typically happens, if I have a light bulb or something for something, it happens at like 11:30 at night. And then I come up here to my office where I am right now, and then I just start hammering something out. And that's kind of what happened with Big Tune. It's funny, like I can work on some manuscripts for a very long time, or some for a much shorter one. And this one was actually a little bit shorter, but because I had kind of worked on this other story before that.
Right.
So I really kind of knocked the story out in maybe an hour or so. And then I came downstairs the next morning and I was like, I have something I think could be really good. And I shared it with my husband. He was like, well, that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. But of course, I still had to tweak the rhyme and finesse it. And I did that kind of over the course of, wow, probably a few weeks. And I also worked with one of my critique partners on it, who had published another a picture book in verse, and of course was probably much better and trained at rhyme than I was. And she kind of helped me finesse some things a little bit. But she was like, I think this is a really good one. And this actually wound up being the manuscript that helped me land an agent too.
Nice.
That being said, my agent was probably a good person for it because she also, writes in rhyme and she wasn't afraid of it. And her husband is also from, St. Lucia. So she's, very familiar with a lot of the cultural elements that were in the book.
Right.
But we worked together to really kind of refine the rhyme and the rhythm, just I was probably sitting on my couch for like a week straight, just tapping to make sure that every single, the meter was right.
Yeah.
And use like a metronome, just kind of all the things to make sure that everything was what it needed to be, that the rhyme scheme was tight. I use Rhyme Zone which is a website,
Yeah.
that I'm sure a lot of us have found, just to make sure that like I have the appropriate words to reduce the near rhyme and to
Yeah.
make it exact rhyme as much as humanly possible. But rhyming is something that, of course, like you're saying, we're always told to shy away from for a number of reasons, because there are only so many editors that will accept rhyme, because of the difficulty of translating it into other languages, which would limit it for foreign rights. But the reality is, everybody knows Dr. Seuss, right? Everybody knows, Llama Llama. There's so many iconic texts that are written in rhyme, and when it's done well, and you can't really see, the extra strings dangling. They're really well loved text, but it's definitely difficult to get to that point. So I love rhyme and I loathe it, but there's just something in me that makes me want to do it. And for this particular text, especially being something that's about music, it felt very appropriate.
Yeah. I do think it was very appropriate. It was a great choice, and it does flow beautifully. And there was, I wish I could remember, there was a couple places I was like, oh, that's like really, really nice. Like it was a little unexpected. I mean, you read a book in rhyme and you go along, you kind of get in the pattern, and then all of a sudden one just kind of surprises you. And you had a couple of there that were just like really like fresh and just not what I was expecting. And so I was like, oh, I like that one. In particular. But the whole story is just just really super fun. And he is a great character. Just he's and the art, the artwork too is just that, I guess paper collage, right? Is the medium that was used. And I love all the musicality that the illustrator worked into the artwork too, and like his bright yellow shirt with all the music notes and it's just fabulous. So fun. Well, and so, my next question was going to be about the musical connections. And I feel like we've already been talking about that, because it's just like, it's the whole book, right?
It is.
But tell us whatever else you would like for us to know about the musical connections, both in the book and for yourself. Because you said you really love music, and do you play? Do you have personal music connections?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I haven't played an instrument, gosh, probably since I was in 6th grade. I used to play the violin, from like 6 to 11, until I conveniently forgot to remind my parents to sign me back up for lessons after I was in the play, and I was just way too busy. I mean, of course, I'm in 6th grade. They didn't forget, but I but I thought I was being slick. Right? Anyways, I just love listening to music, and for some of the books that I've written, some that I've pitched to, I've actually created playlists to go along with them, just because I thought that it was appropriate. For instance, for my first release was the Juneteenth story, and I made a Juneteenth playlist to go along with it. So I've used it for some authors' visits, and just for people to kind of have as an option for them to listen to during Juneteenth. And so, of course, for Big Tune, I made a playlist too. I mean, it's probably a little bit more for adults, because dance hall music, some of the language can be more adult language, but it's also, honestly, a lot of people probably don't understand everything that's being said unless they speak patois. But it sounds very rhythmic, and then you might listen a little bit closer and you're like, wait a minute, what are they talking about? That's the case with a lot of, I'd say, rock and roll, hip hop, so many things, because they're not made, it's not the kids bop version of it, right? It's mostly music made by adults for adults. And when you understand what they're actually talking about, for a lot of songs, honestly, even stuff from back in the day, you're like, wait a minute, maybe we should have been singing along with things the whole time. They were just a little bit more subtle back in the day.
Yes.
But as far as my own musical interest, it's just really just from listening to music, and we love to listen to music all the time in our house. We have dance parties with our smart speaker, and that was kind of what kept us entertained during the pandemic. But for this particular book, it's about dance hall, which is a musical style that originated in Jamaica. And, you know, I mentioned in the author's note, which a lot of people don't read author's notes, but I do encourage people to read this one because it
Yes,
talks
definitely.
about some of the musical forms, you know, that originated in Jamaica, and also their ties to hip hop, which a lot of people don't realize because DJ Kool Herc, who is considered like the godfather, like the founder of hip hop, is from Jamaica, and he took some of the notions of dancehall music, which is like when when they call it like the DJ is the person that's actually more of like the MC that we would say now, is kind of rapping or talking over a track, and it's very similar to what we see now for hip hop and how it kind of emerged. So it's just really important because it also kind of speaks to the notion of how you know, people that might have been immigrants to this country have contributed to something that's seen as an American art form, but to help people understand like the importance of the connectivity from all different cultures and how it comes together to make something new that's, you know, really so globally appreciated right now too. So
Yeah, and I let me just reiterate what Alliah said about the author's note, because if you're one of those that skips over that, don't skip over that, because when I was reading, I was like, what is, I wonder what ting is, and then you told me, and then I was
yeah.
wondering, yeah, there were so many questions as I was reading through, and I was like, I wonder, and then when I got to, I'm like, oh, well, she just answered every question I had, so you did great. So yeah,
Okay.
make sure you read the author's notes, because then you'll know all the things that you questioned all throughout the book. You'll know, because she did a great job.
Exactly. No, thank you. You know, at first I was considering making like a glossary of some of the terms that you oh
Yeah.
goodness, might have seen inside the book, like selector, for instance. That's another word for DJ, and ting, which is a grapefruit soda that's very popular in Jamaica and is absolutely delicious. So there are a number of words like that that kind of are peppered throughout the book, but there's no asterisk, you know, in a description at the bottom.
Right.
So we decided to have more of an author's note that integrated those descriptions and those definitions, but then also talked a little bit more about the context of dance hall, and also introduced or kind of let people know some of the very popular hip hop artists that actually have Caribbean connections too.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I did a unit a couple of years ago with my K2 students on hip hop and rap, and kind of I used Carol Boston Weatherford's The Roots of Rap, and there was I don't remember the author right now, but she wrote I Write the World, and do you know that one?
I'm trying to think.
If not, you should read that.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find the author and I'll send you the link. But both of those were really wonderful in you know, helping kids understand. And a lot of my kids were like, oh, my mom won't let me listen to rap and, you know, or hip hop. And I was like, okay, I get that. But in this context, I'm going to make sure that, you know, it is appropriate for kids. Because you're right. Some of it's, you know, not the most appropriate, but I want them to understand that as an art form and as a music form, it's, you know, the music is not what makes it not appropriate, right? It's the word, the content sometimes, that makes it maybe not the best for kids, but the music itself and that form of music is pure and good for everybody. Right.
Absolutely. Like the rhythms and the syncopation, and there's some musicality of it. It's absolutely.
Yeah. And I enjoyed the food part of the book as well. I was making me hungry.
Good.
I know.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I'm ready for some jerk chicken now. Thank you very much. Some jerk shrimp, some jerk salmon.
No, it's funny. The first class I read the book to in its entirety was my daughter's third grade class. And when I got to one part, I think when I was, you know, it was the spread with the family having dinner, and the ting was on the table. There's one little boy, Sammy. He was like, "Oh, ting! My dad loves ting so much. They're not Jamaican at all." He's like, "We buy so much ting in our house. Yeah, ting, ting, ting all the time." I was like, "Okay, I'm glad to know that, Sammy. I wouldn't have expected that." But when I did the presentation for the school in the Bronx last week, and I was pointing out some of the food on the table, I made the mistake of pointing out the plantain, and people got so excited. They're like, "Ooh, plantain, and a lot of the students, are from Latin descent, so they're like, oh, platanos, and we could have gone on
Yeah.
all day. I was like, I have a couple of other friends that have books about platanos, so like, I'll let you guys talk about platanos for this because we
Right.
could totally derail the conversation.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, the food part, so good.
So good. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much good stuff in this book. So talk to us a little bit about what's coming up next. You said you've got some things in
Sure.
the pipeline, and I know we sometimes have to be vague in this industry, but tell us what you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, fortunately, so I have one book that's coming out in November. It's a little golden book biography
Oh,
about the one and
fun.
only Oprah Winfrey. So I'm very excited about that. I'm like, I'll have my name on a little golden book, and it's about an icon like Oprah. So that's super exciting. And the
Bucket
illustrator,
list, right?
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. The
Yeah.
illustrator Tara Nicole Whitaker is Tara Nicole Whitaker. She's like really, she's really great, and she made like the cutest little baby Oprah I've ever seen. So and she just does such a really great job capturing her essence. I mean, I can't say that enough. And then I actually just announced another book that I have coming out in, I guess it'd be fall of 2024 with Holiday House, and it's called Great Idea Malia, and it's about a very, very bright and ambitious and spunky little girl who's a little bit misdirected. So her mom is kind of a boss lady, and she gets this big new job, and her mother wants to her mother wants, well, she's very busy, and her daughter wants to help her out the best way she possibly can. So she does that. I've got a special guest right here, my son.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And Malia tries to help her mother with her job, and some of the ideas she has aren't necessarily the most helpful in the world. So it's going to be it's a fun book, and it really goes out to all the amazing moms I know who have really delightful, amazing children who keep them on their toes. So that one is coming out, much like mine. So that one's coming out in fall of 24. I also have some other things coming out in 24 and 25. Hopefully I can be more specific about them soon. In spring 24, I have kind of like an activity type book. I'll just kind of keep it vague like that. So it's different for me, but it's really fun to work on and kind of uses another skill set. Then another picture book that should be coming out actually in fall 24. And some early readers that are also slated for some time in 24, as well as another picture book in 25, and then some other things that are in the pipeline. So yeah.
You are a busy lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's fun. It keeps us all on our toes, but like 11:30 strikes and I'm like, wait a minute, I have another idea. So it's funny. My husband calls Great Idea Malia. He's like, you mean Great Idea Alliah? Like,
well, so you wrote one for him. It's only fair that you write one for you, right?
Exactly. I'm like, I was like, I knew better than Malia in some cases. I was like, you got to have some good conflict in a book, but yeah, there's a little bit of her and there's a little bit of my daughter and a little bit of me and her, I'd say, and a little bit of my daughter and her too. So,
of course. Yeah. Well, those things that are closest to it. I mean, they say, write what you know, right? And so those things, I mean, a lot of I told somebody the other day, sometimes writing picture books is like therapy, right? Like, I mean,
it is,
like you're just dealing with those things that you didn't maybe deal with as well when you were a kid. Right. And so,
No, it's really, I went to a conference, like a Kindling Words conference. It's wonderful. You should consider, going. And it's a writer's retreat. And we had a speaker, talk about a middle grade author who's, pretty prolific, talk about how she kind of takes some things that are real life instances of, whatever happened, and to kind of remove herself from it a little bit, she might kind of use it as an opportunity to say like what she wishes she would have done, to kind of create the story, and it was just really interesting and powerful to kind of hear that, to like remove yourself from this truth and make a fictional story, but also kind of figure out how you could right some of the wrongs of the past and things like that. So, really powerful.
Therapy. Picture books are good therapy, folks.
They are very good at therapy. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, there's some I remember reading with my kids. I was like, why am I bawling? Like my kids asleep. I'm like, this story is so touching, you know?
Yes, yes, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a I don't the story of Ruby Bridges. It was so when I was teaching second grade, like that was one that I always shared with my kids. I love that. I love that book. I love her story. And but there's a part in that book where she's, walking to school and she has the literal security guards, that are walking with her, and these people are throwing I mean, it was just and there's the place when she stops and she literally just prays for all the people. And I can never ever get through that scene. I don't care who I'm reading to, myself or out loud. I cannot get through that without breaking down. It's just beautiful. It's just
Yeah.
the compassion and the forgiveness and the heart of that, and
You're a child.
just having just read a little bit about what she had experienced. Yeah, sometimes those picture books are, oh, yeah.
Yeah, Like,
Yeah,
okay, author, good job. Illustrator, good
exactly.
job.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, when you
yeah.
feel those heartstrings being tugged, oh yeah, that author did their job really well. Yes,
Exactly.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it has been a delightful conversation, Alliah. And
Likewise.
yeah, PBJamz peeps, let me tell you, you want to check this book out. And we talk every time about how you can support these wonderful authors, and buying their books, of course, is number one, but also writing reviews on Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes and Noble, anywhere else you can leave reviews. That really helps them out so much. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to buy the book to review it. You can check it out from the library or read it on Epic or Kindle or whatever you have. And then you can leave a review, and that really, really helps the authors out. So please make sure, if you do read this book, and I hope that you will, you really want to, then just, and it doesn't have to be a long review. It can just say, great book, loved it. And then, give her some awesome stars, 5 stars. And yeah, so just do those things. Request it at your library, your school library, your public library. Those are other good ways to help. And then I always like to add, sharing it out either by word of mouth with friends, teacher friends for sure, because they can share it with a lot of folks. But also just moms that are, that have kids that would enjoy these books. And then just sharing it out on social media. So anything you want to add to that, Alliah, that would be a great way to help?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't emphasize, the reviews, library quest enough. A lot of people are like, oh, your book isn't in my library. I'm like, but you can change that. You can put a request in for the book so that you can take it out and others can as well. And also, I'm also still, booking events and speaking engagements and, school and library visits too. So feel free to visit my website and I'll provide the information. If you're interested in booking me for one of those too, because I love connecting with students. It's so much fun.
It is.
And that's been the best part about finally being able to share this book with kids. There's this one little boy at my launch event this past Saturday who broke it to a whine, and I'll tell you, he's not Jamaican. He read the book in advance. And he was like, "I'm ready for my wine." It looked like he had a hula hoop, but he didn't have a hula hoop. I was just like, he's my neighbor too. I was like, go ahead, Max. Show him what you're working with. This is wonderful.
I love it.
This is great.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's a perfect segue. So down below in the blog entry, I'm going to be posting all the links where you can buy Alliah's book, but also where you can visit her on the website and find out more about her school visits and all those pieces. And then I'm also going to be linking out tons of teacher content below for teachers to use this book in their classroom. And as I was talking, I did a unit on hip hop and rap just a couple of years ago with my students, and they responded really, really well. So it's a great book to bring into your classroom. It's full of rhyme. It's full of amazing vocabulary that they probably don't know, because I didn't. And so I was thankful for the author's note, right? So, and make sure you share that author's note with the kids when you share it with them. So we're going to link all that stuff down below. There's going to be a YouTube playlist. There's going to be a Pinterest board. There's going to be lots of great tips, writing prompts. Alliah is going to send me some writing tips for those of you who, like us, are authors. And so that's going to be really helpful for you as well. And she's giving away a signed copy of the book, Big Tunes. So you check it out. It's so awesome. And you know, as a girl from the 80s, I'm loving the cassette tapes and the end papers. So I gotta say, man, it was like whoosh memories, you know. So cool. Yeah.
The funniest thing is just opening the book, and I can show the end papers. It's opening the book and asking kids what they are, and they're like, I know what those are. Those are discs. Those are discs right there. I'm like, actually, we're gonna go back 10 years. Those aren't even discs. These are called cassette tapes. And I found cassette tape earrings that I wore for my, yes, they're adorable. But yeah, it's so funny to have that little blast from the past. But there are some kids that know. There's one little boy, he's like, those are called cassette tapes. And you can press a button and record yourself on the cassette tape. I'm like,
nice. He's got somebody old school in his life.
He does. He definitely does. But I mean, that's, part of the fun of this. Like, yes. I think picture books are so powerful because they're really an opportunity for generations to connect, because so often they're read by parents or grandparents or teachers to children. And so for us grown-ups, our grown folks, to have these nostalgic memories and to be able to share them with our kids and to connect in a different way, I really wanted to make sure, the book kind of provided that opportunity, and I think it has. So I'm grateful.
Yeah, I do think it has, for sure. And we didn't talk about this, but are you familiar with the book Soul Food Sunday? Have you read that?
Oh yeah.
I got real Soul Food Sunday vibes. It reading, especially when they're all like gathered at the table, and it's like, man, this I don't want to spoil. I'm not gonna say, but when they're all gathered around the table, like I was like, oh man, that reminds me so much of like just the vibe of Soul Food Sunday, which is one of my favorite books. I love that book so much. Yeah.
It's a great book. It's so beautiful too.
People just come together around music and food, right? I mean, they just do.
It is, and it's funny. I think it just really transcends cultures. It's just kind of like you can put in a different type of music, put in a different type of food, put in a different type of drink, put in different hair textures, styles, etc. But it's something that's it's really timeless, and it's a way that it can connect. I mean, I think the book is great because there's so many people of West Indian descent that see the title, they're like, oh my goodness, there's a book for us. Like, they jump at it. But when people that are not of West Indian descent kind of open it and they see it, they're like, they can see so much of their own families in it too. And I think, my editor is, Janine O'Malley. She's not Jamaican, but she's not West Indian, but she saw that, that transcendence in the book, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for being here. It's been such a fun conversation.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It's really a pleasure talking to you. I could probably, for another 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, totally. We could. Well, PBJamz folks, be sure to check out the book. Check out all the cool stuff that we're going to link below, and we will see you next time on PBJamz. See ya.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz, jams. Picture books and jams. We'll see you next time.